welcome.
What's up, guys?
Hey, guys.
Yo.
Welcome, everyone, to Mack Flash Music, the show where we like to hang out, talk about different topics in music. I'm AB. We've got Scott, we've got Francois, and we've got Jim. And we're here today to talk about our top 5 female artists. Guys, how you doing? What's going on?
Good, pal.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Tonight's gonna be. Tonight was an exercise. Tonight was an exercise for me.
I've been tinkering with mine for weeks. I'm so excited to finally do this because I've been on my PowerPoints and tinkering and moving and listening and plotting. So I'm ready to present it to the world.
That's
nice.
Awesome. That's really good, Jim.
I'm super stoked. I mean, we do these monthly, so you kind of just are twiddling your thumbs waiting for the reveal. I'm excited.
I've had mine ready for quite a while now. I made one small tinker along the way, but it's pretty much been set for a while, so I'm good to go.
That's good. Mine's been hours for sure. Definitely, definite hours. I like my result. I like my list. I think I'm actually happy with it. I'm not. It's not a phone in. You know what I mean? It's not. It's truthful. It's definitely truthful.
Right.
What I like about this show, especially after our last when we did debut albums and we talked about what our next topic would be, you brainstorm what the list would be, and then you listen to that person's debut album, then their follow up, and see. And I'm literally listening, and I've never heard a lot of these other songs. You listen to the big hits, but then you deep dive, and then you're comparing third album versus third album, and you're like, oh, okay, I like this, and then the personal stuff comes in too. Who do you personally like more? So. I've been putting a lot of work since we finished our last one. I feel like this is the only thing that's been on my mind.
Good, yeah.
This is exciting.
All right. Well, I guess I'll get started. So we're going to go 5 to 1. So I'll start with my number 5 artist. My number 5 artist was part of a group that was on the radio when I was a little kid growing up in the 80s, and I loved their songs. And as I got older, I grew to appreciate them more, and I appreciated her solo stuff. And I am talking about, from Scotland, Miss Annie Lennox from the Eurythmics. And so there we go. It's one of her albums. Annie Lennox from Scotland. She formed the Eurythmics with Dave Stewart in the 80s. They have a ton of hits. When people think about them, they think of obviously Sweet Dreams as being their big hit. But if you look at their various hits, they have a ton of hits. And so when you go through their hits, it's chock full of different, a lot of different stuff in a lot of different styles. Even though they're a synth pop group, they range in their different sounds and their different tones. This is off of one of her solo albums. This is No More I Love Yous, which is from her cover albums. And traditionally, I hate covers. And I hate cover albums a lot. I'm not a big fan of covers, and I love her cover album, and I love this track. I went a little too far there. As she got older, I just feel like she got in her early days. She had that very strong androgynous look going, where there was almost times in America they were afraid of her. They were saying that she was a man that was dressing as a woman, and there's this whole big thing about it in the 80s, and that was big taboo in the 80s, which was nonsense. But there's this big huge thing in Britain. In Brit, they didn't care. They were a huge hit in Brit right off the bat. But they didn't really make it big in America, and that was a lot of the big reason was because they couldn't handle the fact that she was a woman that moved and acted like a man, and so they're really afraid of that. And so then they really latched onto it. When Sweet Dreams came out, they really latched onto it, and I like her because she's very theatrical in her costumes and her outfits, the way that she carries herself. As she got older, she took on this almost regal look and feel, but at the same time, she's still this fierce and ferocious woman that like can scare the shit out of you at times, which I love. Like I think of her as like this like warrior queen. And so as I go through, I'm going to go through and these are my top 5 albums from her. I won't go through all of them, but you can. This is obviously their big track, "Sweet Dreams," and these are my top 5 songs. But this is my number 1. I love this track from her, from the Eurythmics. There Must Be an Angel.
Dreams. Okay.
This track here, it gives her full range. You know, normally she's in her lower octaves. Here she hits her high highs. She sings in her mid-range here and goes low, and it shows her the full range of what she has vocally. And I just love that she has this crazy range that she can hit, and she hits these like angelic highs in this song, just like the song says, "There Must Be an Angel," and I just love it. One of the things I didn't know was that she's been married 3 times and has two kids, 2 daughters. When I deep dive her life, traditionally I don't really like go much into care about people's like lives when I go into artists. Like it doesn't really factor into how I care about their music. So when I was deep diving a lot of the things, I learned a lot about their artists while doing this, and I had no idea that she had 2 daughters. Which I thought was pretty cool. I also found out that she has the record most Best Female Artist in the Brit Awards. She's won it 6 times, the Best Female Brit Award. And so yeah, that's my number 5 was Annie Lennox.
That's really good, man. You're absolutely right about like how ubiquitous Annie Lennox and Eurythmics were during the 80s. I mean, I grew up at a time we're the same age, AB, so
yep.
We had a similar exposure to music, and you know, there's a point where you are, especially back then, you were more affected to the music that played on the radio.
That's right.
There was no other place to hear music, so whatever played on the radio, that's what you heard. And whoever were your parents, chances are you were still listening to Eurythmics or Annie Lennox. Like it played on every sort of style. And it was that. There's nothing to dislike about it, you know.
That's right.
Like the same way you said synth pop, you know, you could say that to some people, say it's a synth pop band. Immediately they'll go, ugh, no, not synth pop. But this was like the accessible synth pop. The sort.
Well, there was a lot more different. There's a lot more different elements to their music. It wasn't just this like synth driven, even though it was all on synth and all electronic. It had a lot more elements going towards where it wasn't like, you know, sunglasses at night kind of synth, where it was like there was rock elements infused in there, and there was a lot, like you said, very accessible to a lot of different people, and very like their lyrics are, you know, fairly harmless, other than like stuff like Missionary Man, where it gets a little edgy, but like for the most part, it's very, you know, harmless lyrics, inoffensive stuff. So it reached a lot of people, which, you know, it can be good.
I love that they covered that Marilyn Manson song too on their cover album.
Get out of here! Yuck!
I had to put it out there.
That's great. I know. I've listened to Eurythmics like playlists, but I didn't know she was like that big a deal. I've heard the name. I just didn't know she is 6 time she won the award. That's fantastic. That's amazing. Cool.
Scott, what do you got for your number 5?
So my number 5, my list changed. My 1 was cemented. My 2, I worked backwards, and then I have an honorable mention list. I could go about 25 deep. Women in music's fantastic, and there's quite a lot. I have different tastes than you guys, so it'll be really interesting to see how this stacks up. But once this number 5 clicked into place, I knew I wanted to keep them there, and I wanted to keep them to honor more or less my childhood, because, you know, as you just alluded to, you listen to a lot of what your parents listen to. And I remember some of the coolest memories I have as a kid were driving in my parents' Mustang. And if I was with my dad, it was the Beach Boys or it was Prince or something like that. And if I was with my mom, it was most assuredly disco. I was raised on disco. Disco was my first love as far as music. Disco, I thought, was the be all and end all when it came to music.
This explains a lot.
I wanted to make sure that my number 5 was represented. And while there is a lot of contemporaries in, you know, Gloria Gaynor, Thelma Houston, Diana Ross, I wanted to honor the undisputed queen of disco and the disco boom, and that's Donna Summer.
Summer.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Donna Summer, wonderful. This is, like I said, there was lots of times when this song playing right now, Hot Stuff, this gets you moving, this gets you grooving, and it got a second life as well too from the Replacements, which is fantastic. So with that, she puts a lot of disco music, some power ballads, and songs about edgy topics too. A lot of her stuff is about, prostitution and stuff like this, and edgy and drugs and things that were going on in the 70s. She had 17 solo albums, not to say 32 compilations. These were just a few of some of her bigger mainstream albums that won her quite a number of awards. I think I read she won about 5 Grammys in her long, lengthy 30-year career that spanned from her album starting in the 70s to her last one in 2008. And what I will be doing today, too, is counting down my top 4 tracks. So similar to AB, it was funny. We didn't even consult on this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be counting down my top 4 tracks of each of these female artists. So for Donna Summer, my number 4 I'm going to be going with is On the Radio. My number 3 Donna Summer track is She Works Hard for the Money.
Yes.
Which is great. My number 2, which was one of my favorite songs to listen to. There's memories of my number 2 of me like dancing in my parents' basement to, not really understanding what the subject nature of the topic was about, but that's Bad Girls. And my number 1, you can't have Hot Stuff with Donna Summer. So like I said, so to honor the my love of disco when I was a kid, and because it's music I can, if I'm in my headphones at the gym when they reopen, odds are it's hardcore rap or show tunes or it's disco, and I'd be listening to Donna Summer. So my number 5, thanks for all the disco mom, is Miss Donna Summer.
No love for I Feel Love, eh?
There's
Oh, that's I Feel Love. I Feel Love is incredible.
Okay, but it's okay.
Jojo Moroder.
But it's I don't know. It's like 5 minutes long, and it's like 3.5 minutes before, and she it's okay.
I love it. I honestly, I Feel Love is one of my all-time.
It's a sweaty disco too. I love it. I like the more power ballads as well.
It's like early EDM. It's like obviously, yeah, like definitely the early flashes of it. I mean, Jojo Marauder is incredible. Like Donna Summer hooking up with the right person to make her music is obviously the key, right? He's like, you get that right groove and that right beat, and you've got yourself a track. So
top 5 women in music continues with my number 5. At this point I have got so my exercise was as I said before, eye-opening. It was more one of those I'm like, oh yeah, women in music, tons. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure I love a bunch of women in music. And I started looking. I go, oh God. I mean, I'm aware of a bunch of women in music.
You didn't? Oh wow.
But do I is there one that I just reach for all the time? And I'm like, I love this chick. She's so good, right? It's like, you're right. Is there one of those? I'm like, well, I don't listen to a lot of pop music, and that's where a lot of the women tend to concentrate, or commercially, if you will. And then the women that go to rock, I'm not very familiar with, or I don't listen to a lot. So what I said is, I went through all of these lists of the top women in music, and as I would go down, I would mark the ones that I knew, the ones that I was familiar with, and then I was like, which ones would you constantly listen to, or most often listen to? And that's kind of the exercise here. Are they my top 5 favorite artists ever? No, but they're definitely the top 5 women in music that I would reach to and listen to on a regular basis. To start that off is an odd choice, and possibly why it's at number 5, and that would be a young lady called Norah Jones.
There you go. LB.
I love
you're using LB right now.
I love me some Norah Jones. She's got such a great voice.
Waited till I saw.
Listen to that. It's beautiful. I don't know if you guys can hear it well here.
I don't know why I didn't come.
Just such a beautiful voice. This is from her debut album, Come Away With Me. And that is pretty much the only album that I really know that I've thrown on many times. She's got plenty of albums. But this one, every time I want to just kind of chill out and be in a good mood and listen to this, just sort of like, it's not sad, it's not melancholy, it's just kind of relaxed, chill. Like, the sun is shining, I would just want to chill here and drink my coffee and just do whatever. I love this album. Add to that she collaborated with the Foo Fighters on Skin and Bones, the acoustic album. She's done an entire country album collaborating with Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day.
Really?
Which is very cool. It's almost like, June and Johnny Cash, sort of type of country, harmonies and stuff. And it's very nice and it works well. And so to me, anyone who can basically drive one of my other favorite artists to do something different as well is kind of cool. So that's what it is. I like the way a lot of my stuff today is going to be fun facts about these people. Here's one that possibly everybody knows. She's the daughter of Ravi Shankar, the famous sitar player as well. And her sister also plays the sitar. So, for that, for all of that just beautiful sort of like peaceful, awesome sound that she puts together overall, and just that general feeling, that's why Norah Jones is my number 5.
That was around my house at my like when I go over to my mom's house. That's one she listens to a lot, and I do all of that. I love that first album as well.
Oh, it's such a good
but
album.
you're right. It's just like you put it on, and it's you can read or do your chores, whatever, and it's just kind of chill.
I think it's nice. Literally. I think it's actually like to the point where it's soothing.
Yes.
If you put it on, you'll feel better. You don't just feel good. You'll feel better than you are after you listen to this album. which is what great music can do, right? It can change your mood. Yeah,
so.
100%. All right, Jim, what you
got?
Number 5.
Number 5.
All right, so my number 5, and how I kind of come up with my list is I'm the type of person that'll, when I go to work at night, and I'm working midnight, so I will make a 7-hour playlist for work that night, which has probably about 105, 106 songs going through it.
Awesome.
And I'm thinking about people that I always put on my list, either every day or every other day. And one of these people was somebody who I listened to as a kid, JVC, big ghetto blaster boombox in my sister's room on cassette. Her second album was absolutely amazing. Sheryl Crow got a very late start in her career, actually. She was actually Michael Jackson's backup singer back in the day, during the late 80s, during his Bad tour.
No way.
And actually collaborated on stage on his song I just can't stop loving you, which was one of their very popular duets. So that was her career start. And she also collaborated on a few songs with Stevie Wonder and Don Henley, provided some backing vocals in the late 80s, early 90s. This vehicle came through later on with her then boyfriend called the Tuesday Night Music Club, which became a vehicle for her first album. What ended up happening is it launched her career superstardom. She might have had one of the biggest one of the most outstanding 10 years from 1994 to 2004. The hit after hit that she released. I mean, All I Want to Do, Strong Enough, off of her first album, Tuesday Night Music Club. Late hits. The album wasn't very successful at the start, but then it progressed, and then it started releasing all these hits. Can't Cry Anymore is another awesome hit off that album. So when her second album came out, the self-titled Sheryl Crow, which, by the way, looking it up, she played so many instruments on it. She played piano, she played organ. On top of doing vocals, she also played guitar and bass on that album, which shows you the immense talent of this lady. And songs like Redemption Day, which was later covered by Johnny Cash on American Man's Number 6. Every Day is a Winding Road, If It Makes You Happy. So many hits. And then
it's a lot that pop in my head
absolutely,
immediately, and not even being a fan.
Yeah. And then, that popularity led her to the big Bond hit Tomorrow Never Dies. the beautiful cover of "Sweet Child of Mine" and "Big Daddy," which might not be the most greatly reviewed movie, but certainly that song was so awesome. And then later on, "Come On, Come On" was in 2002 after she had a couple-year layoff. "Soak Up the Sun," Steve McQueen, which is an awesome rock ballad, won her second Best Rock Performance Grammy Award. And then the last couple of years, she's kind of popped back into the country music scene, which I haven't really followed too much of. But that 10-year period, 1994 to 2004, was just some of the most outstanding and most talented music that's ever come out of. And I like my rock chicks too. Like, I kind of stay away from the pop. I kind of stayed away from the pop princesses with this list, but she is just such a talented, outstanding musician.
And
especially when you can play 5 instruments on a single album.
Oh, for sure.
And the one thing too that was huge about her, and we'll get to high profile relationships and things like that, and tabloids, which we certainly will on my list. But her relationship with Lance Armstrong was massive, massive. So that was just kept her that brought her stardom. That brought her stardom even higher. So no doubt.
Which some people like to claim that My Favorite Mistake was written about the relationship with Clapton, although she's constantly denied it. But believe what you want to believe, right?
Exactly. The truth has to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes the lie's more interesting than the truth ever can be, right?
Oh, for sure.
I remember when All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun came out. That song, I don't know what it was about that song, but it was so different than anything else that was being played at the time. And I don't know if it was one of those things that I was a teenage boy listening to teenage boy music. And so when this song came out and it got my attention, I was like, why am I liking this? Why am I interested in this? This is not like what I listen to at all. And yet I really like this song.
Yeah.
So no, she does have that appeal where you're like, oh my God, yeah, you write a good song, man. Like,
all right. We'll move on to my number 4.
Quattro.
My number 4 was an artist that came out in my first year of college, and she hit the scene and with a bullet for me. And I'm just gonna go right into it. It is Erykah Badu.
Awesome.
I
love her.
Nice.
Her album Baduism came out in my first year of college in 1997, and the song On and On just blew my mind. I was like, this is what I love. I mean, she's what they're being called the queen of neo soul. There's the neo soul movement, and there was like D'Angelo, Maxwell, her. Later on, there's Jill Scott. For a few other artists, where you have this old-timey sounding soul singer over more modern hip hop beats and real like 80s like funk grooves. And right here you got one of the like Dre beats for over top of Bag Lady. This song Bag Lady, which is on the album, is like more like mellower and like chill. But as the single, they released like the Dre Bag Lady beat over it, and it like it's just unbelievable. Erykah Badu, she has got this thing where she's got this her own thing going on. Like, you have other singers that are, pretty run of the mill as far as this whole the whole scene goes. The soul scene, it's pretty standard. Where she's got her own style to her, where she really doesn't give a shit. Like, she doesn't care what you think, and she has this thing in her music where she doesn't care what you think. She's gonna do or have her own style or do her own thing. And her vocals are just so different. They have that old timey soul to it, but there's just that little twinge that makes her stand out to me. And I just love her style too. Like, she's just weird. Like, her personal style is very strange and very out there. When that album came out, 1997 came out, Baduism came out, I was all in. But then when 99 rolled around and she collaborated on Things Fall Apart with the Roots, which I was at the time super obsessed with the Roots, and she did You Got Me with the Roots and Black Thought. That took her to an astronomical level for me. That song is so good. Is one of the great hip hop duets of all time. It's unbelievable for me. So here's her top 5 albums through it. Obviously, Baduism being the number 1. This track here is off the live album. It's called Tyrone, and you'll have to check it out afterwards. But it's so funny. It's about basically like guy only hangs out with his friends, and like they'd never spend time together alone. He just wants to bring his friends around to hang out with her, and she basically is giving him the boot and tell him, call Tyrone to come help you get your shit. And it's a trip. I love it. But here's my top 5 of her tracks. On being 1, Tyrone. Next Lifetime is a great track about a what if track, and Bag Lady and I'm in Love with You, which is a duet with Damon Marley. Some fun facts about Erykah Badu. It's a kind of a well-known thing. She was with Andre 3000 and had a child with him. And at 7 what?
That's the name of their kid.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. It's like 7 children. He only has 3 children. Yeah, and so Miss Jackson, by the huge song by Outkast, is about Erykah Badu and her mom. It's actually singing to Erykah Badu's mom, and so she's gone on to be with a couple other rappers. She's been with Common. She was with the DOC, has a kid with the DOC, and a couple other people. But she's done some really great collabs with a bunch of different hip hop artists over the years. And her style lends so well to do hooks and stuff for hip hop artists. And I just love that because, instead of, a hip hop artist having to sample an old, hook for a song, she comes in and gets something fresh and original to a song, and it drives that song to the next level. So yeah, my number 4, Erykah Badu.
Very nice.
Yeah, I enjoy some Erykah Badu. What's funny, I think I discovered her when I was in university around the time, late 2000s. I congregated more to her contemporary, a little more mellow Corinne Bailey Rae. They're very similar. I like Corinne Bailey Rae quite a bit, but I always put, Erykah Badu in an edgier style, and maybe a comparison will come up, maybe like an Adele, Amy Winehouse. There's one that's more mainstream, and there's one that's going to push the envelope a little bit more and be a little bit edgier. And certainly, even in those pictures, you can see
she's far more political too, and like a lot more social issues, especially in her later albums. She gets a lot more into social issues than somebody like Corinne Bailey Rae or Jill Scott.
Of course, and certainly she paves the way now. Like you say, Jill Scott, and certainly her is like an offsuit of Erykah Badu.
Cool. Scott, number 4.
So my number 4. Again, I want to paraphrase this list. It changed so much. I didn't know who I wanted to go. I had different artists here, and I don't know if I was completely happy. And then late last night, this is the one I changed, and I changed this artist. And apologies, Beyonce Knowles, you'll show up on another list later, but you unfortunately didn't make mine here. And the reason why I did not pick Beyonce is for all the same reasons why I picked my number 4. And like I said, it goes to the fact of music. But the other thing behind the scenes, and not even music-wise, this celebrity and this pop star was staring me right in the face on how much I enjoy her. And I'm talking about Jenny from the Block.
Nice.
Yeah. So the reason why I picked J-Lo, and I couldn't believe she was staring me right in the face, I've seen her movies for decades. Yeah. I go out of my way to Google image search Jennifer Lopez. When Jennifer Lopez is working out and there's photos on Twitter, I will look at them. I know everything about Jennifer Lopez's personal life. We'll get to this. There's a reason why I saw Hustlers 3 times. I saw Hustlers in theaters, guys, and it was unbelievable.
I remember trying to make fun of. I remember trying to make fun of Made in Manhattan. You were like, "That's a great movie," and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I will back off. I will back off."
Was great. So here's the thing: Beyonce was great here, but I realized, given the albums and that, and she's got high highs, and I like it, but she stays very private in her private life. You don't know much about her, and she's kind of got a scowl. But J-Lo goes out of her way more so to be a celebrity and a diva, and I like that. She's a businesswoman in that. I like, how bad she is in relationships. That's great. She's been divorced a couple times. I dig it. I like her high-profile relationships. She had a vlog with A-Rod. I was all in on the A-Rod relationship. I even joked that between me and my wife, Natalie, it's like kind of an A-Rod J-Lo relationship. My wife aspires to be a diva in the way that J-Lo is. I dig it. I'm into it. I like that style of woman. Unfortunately, they fell out. I was like, oh no, what's J-Lo going to do? Guys, she's back with Ben. Ben and Jen Army reunite. I am all in on my guy. My guy, 17 years later, love is alive. So like I said, she's got 8 albums right here, 8 studio albums. She started with On the Six and went through there. Stare me right in the face. Constant for the last 20 years, since 1999, On the Six debuted. She has been a constant in film, in paparazzi fandom. We have followed her. She just did the Super Bowl. She's getting hotter with age, guys. She is scintillating in her 50s. And like I said, for all the same reasons that I will go out of my way and watch her movies, she's an incredible. Like, I saw Second Act. I watched her in Second Act because I'm like, oh, J-Lo's in this. That's my girl. I can't believe I didn't have her on my list. This girl shot up like a rocket from my original list in like the teens to my number 4. So for that, I will give all the love to my girl, Jennifer Lopez. And counting down my top 4 J-Lo tracks, my number 4 is Dinero, more recent. My number 3, On the Floor, that you just heard. My number 2, off her debut album, Let's Get Loud. And my number 1, Jenny from the Block, it has to be. And Jenny from the Block, when you really listen to it, what an unbelievable song. Ben in the video. And just her first verse that she opens it to, from In Living Color to movie scripts to On the Six to J-Lo to these headline clips, I stay grounded as the amounts roll in. I'm real. I thought I told you. That pentameter of that rhyme, like Lin-Manuel Miranda, man, just like sharp. So for the fact of her music career, for her movie career, for how beautiful she is, for that she's a constant in my life. And like I said, when I'm down, yeah, I might search Jennifer Lopez Google Images and take a 15-minute break and look at some of those. Fashion, she's iconic, she's everything. So my number 4 woman in music is the great Jennifer Lopez. 4 kids, and I got to take all the badass to showbiz.
I don't even know what to say to that.
That was amazing. That was a love letter. That was an open love letter to Jennifer Lopez.
Once it doesn't work out with Ben again, holler at your boy.
Yeah. Mine's going to seem very short compared to that and less passionate. But let's keep it moving right now with my number 4, top 5 women in music. So again, mine was more of an exploration, and it was definitely, this is someone I've definitely been curious about. Not going to pretend I know anything about them or their band, except that when I, saw it, I said, well, I'm pretty sure I know a song or two. And I went over and basically knew every top, you know how Spotify, they'll always put the most popular songs right there on the top. And I knew every one of them. And I was like, oh, okay. Apparently I know all of these. And then I expanded that to 10 and I found like 3 more. And I was like, okay, well, this is one of those, again, ubiquitous sort of like this music is everywhere. Clearly it is a little bit older, but nonetheless, my number 4 is Karen Carpenter.
Oh, cool. Wow. Man, you are making a list for LB right now. This is a straight LB list.
She named a
right
few,
now.
but Karen Carpenter was one. Isn't Karen Carpenter in the Carpenters?
Yeah,
they were the
her and her
Carpenters.
brother, yeah.
So
and John. And is John related? I'm joking. Please continue.
Is John related?
Oh
I love
gosh.
that question. We should really look that up. Maybe he's an uncle or a cousin or something. Karen Carpenter.
The creepy uncle. It's the creepy uncle John. Like creepy Uncle John's over there making movies.
He's
we
just
don't know.
stabbing pumpkins again.
Yeah,
It's
making weird movies in
February.
the corner.
Go ahead.
No, it's good. I told you this was going to be short anyways. This is fine. You're filling up the time for me. This is one of my favorite songs ever. The harmonies in the background, the way... I love the progression. It's just so, like, it's such a good song. Me First and the Gimme Gimme does a great version of this, by the way. I always love hearing this song. As we said, the Carpenters were Karen Carpenter on drums and vocals, her brother Richard together. She eventually moved away from the drums and became principally the singer, only for just a couple of live performances and recordings. She was praised for her voice. I think she was a contralto, so it's like a kind of a rarer range for women, and she just nailed it. She fun fact, well, not a fun fact at all.
Yeah.
She struggled with anorexia all of her life. If anything, it's her death due to complications to that sort of helped raise awareness about the condition of anorexia and body dysmorphia, which is how people perceive themselves. So if anything, that was kind of like her final gift, is to say, hey, there's a lot of people who suffer from this, and we should pay attention to it. And it kind of took off with her. But to bring it back to the music, she was an accomplished drummer, an amazing singer. So many songs, as I said. We've Only Just Begun, Top of the World, Close to You, Why Do Birds Suddenly Appear? We all know that song. And Rainy Days and Mondays. So for that reason, upon my research and looking, I was very inspired. And again, all of these, maybe musicians I don't know that well, but I'm now inspired to go and delve deeper into their catalog and sort of explore it. So there you have it.
Yeah, like I said, LB was definitely into the Carpenters. I kind of got into them because of Sonic Youth covers Superstar by them, and I really love that cover version of it, and so I went back and listened to the original, and the original is really great too. But that was kind of it's kind of funny, like you have your thing where it's like your parents' music when you're a kid, and you're like, oh, it's there, and as you get older, it's kind of like you rediscover it for yourself, and you have to rediscover it for yourself and make it your own, rather than like, ew, it's my parents' music, and you're like, okay, now it's my music too.
Yeah,
so cool. Yeah,
that's cool.
I dig on
the other thing about Karen Carpenter is, as a drummer myself, it's always interesting. It's always been a thing to see like a female drummer, and I think that's like everybody who likes music, because it's a rare thing to see a female drummer. And so when you see one, and one that's accomplished and successful at it as well, it makes you go, holy crap, like that's a really talented person, because you've accomplished something that not a lot of people have. Which I don't know, maybe that's my own view of it, but I've always felt that way. So everyone was like, oh, and they have a girl drummer. What? That was like, well, that's an added plus, right? For some reason.
It's like breaking stereotypes, right? Breaking down those stereotypes where, when you see that, it's like it kind of shocking, because it's not a lot of people that are in that, right?
Especially
and so it's
how rock is very male driven.
Yeah, the boys club.
Especially with such a percussive, perceptually, strong instrument, to see a girl playing that. I think even as a teenage boy, as you grow up, you learn that it doesn't matter, especially nowadays. But, as a teenage boy, you're like, whoa, that's really striking. And I think in a good way. I think it's striking in a good way.
Jim, what do you got for number 4?
For number 4, I'm going with what I would like to call a modern day throwback. She's immensely talented on the piano. She has such a beautiful, soulful voice, and that is Alicia Keys.
Yeah,
great.
100%.
She was trying to get onto my
She's
my
power
list.
rank number 1. Honestly, of the most talented, I might have somebody, but she's got to be power ranked 1. She's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at 20 years old, she was releasing these critically acclaimed albums. at 14 years old, her piano teacher told her, "You're too good. I cannot teach you anymore. Go on about the world." And she grew up in not the greatest environment, Hell's Kitchen, New York, but in that environment, after she began her musical, I would say tutelage, I guess would be the word, maybe. She went out and explored the different sounds of New York. So you hear all kinds of influences in her music. You hear that rock, you hear rap, you hear R&B, and she collaborates with so many different artists. Usher, she recorded a #1 hit with My Boo.
My Boo.
Yeah. Jay-Z, Nicki Minaj. She can go that heavy rap, but also at the same time, she can come back to that soulful ballad, like Falling, like her original hit Falling. That was so played when I was a teenager on the radio.
Yeah.
It was like Hey Ya for Outkast. That song did not leave the radio station if you were a top 40 hit for 10, 12 years.
I think my sister, who's like not even that big of a music fan, like she never was this, the music, she like loved that song. Like she was like, I like that song Falling by Alicia Keys. Like that's how big that song was.
Girl on Fire is like a complete game, 22 strikeout. Like she just hits highs on that. Like Girl on Fire is out. She puts up 65 points in the Garden on that one.
Absolutely. And then if you even listen to some of her live stuff, Adam Levine, one of my favorite covers of Wild Horses, which was the great Rolling Stones song, just there's not enough words. And I'm not a big rap and R&B guy all the time, but I can appreciate fantastic musicianship. And Alicia Keys just is one of those people that it's almost like the perfect gin and tonic. It just tastes good every time you drink it. It tastes good every time you listen to it.
One of my favorite Alicia Keys things, and it's going to be weird to say, there's like all the hits that you said, but the collaboration with Jack White on the
My Name, or is it Another Way to Die? Another Way to Die.
Yeah. That is just like an amazing Bond song, and it's like one of those that you could see getting criticized. First of all, they got 2 artists, and who did they get, and how are they going to do this? And then you hear it, and it's just like...
I put that song over hard on our Mack Flash album. Is better than the film.
Oh, that's so good.
And that's the thing about great music.
Mad.
No, I was gonna say wait till. No, I was gonna say wait. Don't tell Matthew Robbins that. Matthew Robbins is not.
Oh, is it him who hates it? I love.
Yeah, no, I love it.
I'm
into it.
That's like a literal that's a surf and turf song. She comes in with like the nice seafood. She's like the very buttery, and then you get Jack White, who's like the grilled up meat, and it's perfect.
Yeah. And then if they were a band, Jack White is like literally drum and bass, and she comes in as like guitar and vocals and just adds the prettiness. It's just like, oh, it's so nice. It's so nice.
I'm a big fan of her song. "Wait Till They See You Smile" is one of my favorites of hers. I don't know, it's not a really big hit of hers, but I just love that. It's got a really great like piano and then build to it, like a really great crescendo. "Wait Till You See You Smile." Yeah, I love her. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
it's great.
She's always touted as like a musical genius type of musician, and yet like you still a lot of people who don't like, it's just not she's not ubiquitous. You know what I mean?
Her husband's super music producer, Swiss Beats. So that's as powerhouse as you get.
Swiss Beats is awesome.
And she carries herself with this elegance that you would think that if it was 1961 or 2021, she would fit in either era just with the way she carries herself. And the more I listen to her, the more I just, go on iTunes. Okay, another song downloaded. Another $1.29 gone away for another song.
Get Spotify.
Get Apple Music. What are you doing?
I like owning the copies of music. I mean,
all right. I give you that.
Wow, when talking about owning the copies of music, and we're going to talk about owning the copies of music, and we're going to talk about musical geniuses. We're going to get to a musical genius who taught herself piano at the age of 11, was writing hit songs at the age of 13, who released her first single at the age of 16. We're going to talk about Kate Bush right now.
Kate Bush, yes. I don't. Yeah,
I don't know who
I'm
that
like.
is.
I'm with you, Scott. I saw the name on lists. Not
I don't
familiar.
even- I've
Not
never heard of
familiar.
Kate Bush is from England, obviously. Like I said, started out super young. When she was a teenager, one of her family friends was really good friends with David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, the guitarist from Pink Floyd. And so she gave him a tape, and he lost his mind, got the funding for her to record her demo, her first like real album, and it just skyrocketed from there. She released her first single. She went into the studio, recorded her first album. The studio wanted to release a different song, but she fought for Wuthering Heights, which was based on that she wrote based on the novel. Up until that point, she had basically had 100 songs, almost 100 songs going into her first album, which she released when she was like 18, 19 years old. The very first number one UK hit single written by a woman, fully written and played by a woman, was "Wuthering Heights" by Kate Bush.
Come on.
And yeah,
She
and
fought
so
for.
and the one she fought for, and so it was so jarring to everything else that was playing on the radio at the time. I believe it came out in '79. That people lost their minds. They didn't know what it was. They didn't understand what they were hearing, and it was her vocal was so strange and so different from everything else that was happening. She's got this such a unique and like very like just tonally crazy voice where it's all over the place, and she does these vocal gymnastics within her songs that are just unbelievable. She took the money from her so the studio gave her a big advance to basically off of her first album. She took that and she took dance lessons, and she took mime lessons from the guy who taught David Bowie. She's a big David Bowie fan, and so he taught her mime. And so she went off onto her first tour and did her first tour in '79, and it was the only tour she ever did ever. She took so much out of her, and she put so much into the thing, and you can watch her live show from the tour on YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's like a Cirque du Soleil show, basically. Like, it's so much involved, and she was so into it that it took so much out of her, she never wanted to do it again. And so she stuck mainly to making videos, and each one of her videos is like performance art. She does like performance art in each one of her videos. And this is from the Wuthering Heights video. You gotta watch. If you watch her music videos, there's something else. One of her big music videos is for this song, which is playing in the background, which is Cloud Busting, which is off of her Hounds of Love video, and it's based on a book by Peter Reich, and it's all about, he's this weird scientist guy who created this cloud busting apparatus that supposedly created rain. And in the music video, Peter Reich is played by Donald Sutherland, and she plays his son in it. And it's this whole like elaborate video, which is also available on YouTube, and it's unbelievable. Like, especially getting Donald Sutherland, who's an amazing actor, and it's a great video. This song. So I obviously I've been deep diving all these artists, and so last week I watched Palm Springs, the Andy Samberg movie with Christina Maloney on Amazon Prime. The song that plays at the pinnacle of the movie is Cloud Busting, and I lost it. I was like, Kate Bush, and so I went online. I'm Googling it, and come to find out that Andy Samberg is like a mega Kate Bush fan.
That
and
makes
so
a lot of sense.
and so like he like wrote her a letter asking her if he could use the song in the video or in the movie, and he never received anything back from her personally, but they obviously allowed him to use the song. But like, he is like super Kate Bush fan, and I was like, that's amazing. Like, especially like I just happened to watch that. So here's her 5. This is Wuthering Heights. So that You hear some of it. You just hear her, just a weird, strange voice.
Yeah, it's almost like it's very operatic.
Yes,
and,
she's very theatrical.
Very theatrical, like you said. Yeah. Almost like listening to a musical theater. Yeah, like it's like a female Meatloaf. You know.
Ouch.
No, Meatloaf is
No,
whether you like him or not. That's what Meatloaf does. He does like
rock opera,
musical theater as an album, as an art form.
Yeah, and so like she fought. One of the things I like about her is that she's very unconventional in her song lyrics, and she writes songs like this song is about Wuthering Heights, the book. She has also written songs about. She has a song called Hammer Horror, which is about Hammer horror movies, and like the thing that she's. I like that kind of artist that makes you deep dive. You can listen to the song and take it for what it is, or you can deep dive the subject matter. And there's all these like things that are put into the songs and put into her lyrics where you can like basically learn, right? Like she's almost like teaching you, like here, check out Wuthering Heights. Here, check out these movies. And like in her one song from the title track from Hounds of Love, she actually includes a sound clip from a movie, which is Night of the Demon, and it's like a clip from a movie, right? And you're like, oh, what was that? And it's like now it's commonplace to have that kind of thing, but back then in the 80s, I was like, oh, you're playing like movie clips in your songs, and especially like a woman pop song. Like this is strange, but like for me, like you're throwing a horror, sound clip into your song. I'm like, yeah. Oh, what is this? I'm interested in this.
You have my attention.
Yes. And so this is my favorite song that's playing in here. Running Up That Hill is probably the first song that I heard from her. It was one of the big songs for her in the U.S. and North America. It is this beat. Is just kills me. I love this beat, and there's so much emotion in her songs. Like you said, that she's super theatrical and super like passionate, and like this song just is everything that for me, as far as like her putting everything into her track. So that is my number 3, Kate Bush, and for the record, it is a flat out crime that Kate Bush is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because, and I think one of the number one reasons why she is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is because she is a recluse. Like she does not like the press. She kind of like hid herself away. Yeah, she hid herself away. Yeah, she hid herself away. She didn't want people into her private life, so like they would hound her, like they'd have helicopters over top of her like estate and all that stuff, and it really turned her off to like basically being a public figure. And like she just wanted to be an artist. She wanted to release her art, and like they were not willing to do that. Like she did not want herself to be this like this person. So I think that's one of the big things, which sucks. Like that shouldn't be that. You should be based on your work, right? Your work has inspired so many artists, and like just especially in British music, she is held in such high regard in British music that it's criminal that she's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
She can sleep easy at night knowing that she made the AB Hall of Fame.
That's it. You put her over huge. A girl I've never heard of. You just put her over huge, and now I saw Palm Springs, and if I watch it again, I'll know that story. That's fantastic.
Same thing. It's okay.
Okay, so I will bring it to my number 3 now. So to set up my number 3, a lot of music I like. I mostly like a lot of pop music. I like a lot of rap. And one of the other things I like is a lot of like 50s and 60s soul, gospel, R&B. So I wanted to make sure that was included in my list. Now, this is going to be a female artist whose apex mountain was well before I was even born. She's one that I'm constantly discovering still to this day. And a lot of contemporaries, a lot of popular names such as Ella Fitzgerald, Etta James, and Billie Holiday. But for my number 3, I'm going to be going with Miss Nina Simone.
Very cool.
Very nice.
So Nina Simone is just somebody I'm still learning about constantly. She released, no one knows, they say upwards of 75 albums. A lot of them are still unreleased. A lot of them have not been found. She was releasing 7, 8 albums a year in late 50s, early 60s as well, too. She's got a number of documentaries. Zoe Saldana played her in a biopic, but that movie has been wiped from existence due to the behind-the-scenes drama of darkening her up, and it's kind of the studio has distanced itself from that film. So, but an unbelievable life, a lot of violence, as most of these female artists, you know, they get with men at this time, and even though they have all the talent, the power is held over them. She struggled with mental illness at the end of her career, firing guns at her, you know, her backup singers and her managers and stuff over, you know, little discrepancies. My kind of woman. But, you know, as I said, she has about 75 albums, but here's a lot of the ones you most certainly will know. Like I said, she's still to this day, a lot of her songs have been covered. I Put a Spell on You. They're still being used in films and promos. And bringing to my top 4 Nina Simone tracks. Honorable mention going to I Love You Porgy. I didn't put it. It's not a great song, but she has a song called I Love You Porgy. Don't let him take me away. Don't let him move me and drive me. Don't let him handle me and drive me mad. And I sing that to I have a pug. So sometimes when I'm lifting my pug dog up, I will sing, I love you, Puggy. Don't let him take me. Don't let him handle me. So that'll be an honorable mention. But going back to that, my number 4 will be Love Me or Leave Me, which is a little up-tempo, jazzy song. My number 3, I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free, which is a civil rights song that could almost be held in as high regard as Change Gonna Come. Which you know, this is one that once a lot of people hear it, I know they know it, but it could still stand to be a little bit more mainstream. My number 2, Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, which I've always loved this song, and they just used it in the Dexter revival on Showtime, the promo with Dexter staring out the window. He turns back and smiles at the camera, and it's set to this song. And her number 1, which is in my probably top 10 favorite songs of all time, you just heard her rendition of Feeling Good, which has been covered time and time again. I was first introduced to that song through Michael Bublé. As I go back, you know, it's fantastic. His version is unbelievable, but it all pales in comparison to Nina Simone. Yeah. So for that and everything she gave to the civil rights movement and speaking out, and at a time when, you know, a lot of the more famous artists were the men doing this. Sam Cooke certainly was the godfather of soul, into Ray Charles, who was achieving heights that no one could imagine at this time. And there was a big logjam of females doing it. But my favorite of that era now, and as I'm still discovering, is Nina Simone. So my number 3, you know, you wouldn't get the Beyoncés of the world if there wasn't a Nina Simone to pave the way. So Nina's my number 3.
I was introduced to Nina Simone because of David Bowie. He covers Wild as the Wind. And so when I found out that was a cover, I checked out her original song, Wild as the Wind. And it's such a crushing song. Her version is so heartbreaking, so crushing. I love it. It's when I'm in that place where I'm like, you know, feeling blue or feeling down, I put that track on, and you know, it takes me to the low lows that I want to go to when I'm feeling blue. But yeah, Wild as the Wind was the first track I heard of hers, and so then after that, I kind of, you know, deep dove her tracks after that.
And even now, a lot of her stuff's still being sampled in rap. And like I said,
exactly.
Rap's my favorite kind of music. But you go to Kanye West sampling Strange Fruit on Blood on the Leaves. Yeah, that's exactly what he starts with. Kanye and Jay-Z use Feeling Good on New Day on their Watch the Throne. Lil Wayne uses Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. Timberland uses Cinnamon on Oh Timberland. So they're still going back to it. So yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Very cool. It's a good one. It's number 3, right? It's good number 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
My number 3, something completely different than yours, and possibly one of the only ones that I don't know because of her singing abilities. This is the one that maybe you figured out, but Melissa Oftermar.
No, I didn't. Oh man, I love her.
There you have it, a little bit of a hole there in the background. So this is the one where I had to go to the group and say, So we're not just doing women singers, right? We're doing women musicians. And the difference was, was it a musician? What's the difference? Well, Melissa Oftermar is the bass player principally. She was the bass player for Hole, Courtney Love's band, on the second album, Celebrity Skin. So she came in and replaced Kristen Pfaff, who died. Now, Melissa almost did not join the band, only because she thought it was kind of a dark thing to be stepping into. A band whose member had died, you had to step in and replace this person. She's like, I'm not sure I'm going to do it. It was Billy Corrigan who introduced Melissa to the band and said he actually showed up. He had met her before because she was at a Smashing Pumpkins show. Melissa was with her friend, and her one friend, his dude, got just didn't like Billy Corrigan's style, and so he threw a bottle at him and he yelled at him. He was like, "Stop being whatever," and then he was like, he's basically making fun of him. And Melissa Oftermar went up to Billy Corrigan later and she's like, I want to apologize on behalf of Montreal for my friend. Because, by the way, she is Canadian. She is from Montreal.
Montreal, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where she met Billy Corrigan. Anyway, later on, Billy Corrigan saw her again and he said, listen, you're going to meet these people. You're going to be in this band. And she's like, what? And then she didn't want to. She ended up joining. She joined Hole for a while. She was on Celebrity Skin, did touring. She left there. She ended up becoming a touring musician or a touring bass player for Smashing Pumpkins. For a while, she toured for one album, and at the same time starting her own solo career as Melissa Oftermar. So I have not checked out her solo stuff.
It's great
until today. And I was like, it's very par for what she does. It's kind of the band she's been in. That's what she sounds like, and I'm looking forward to listen to it. And again, she's a Canadian. She's collaborated with a lot of Canadian musicians, including Never Ending White Lights from right here in Windsor.
There you
Ontario.
go. Yeah, cool.
Boom. So that's my number 3, Melissa Oftermar, possibly the most interesting last name you'll hear tonight.
So a lot of people were really bent when Billy Corrigan kicked out Darcy out of Smashing Pumpkins. A lot of people were really bent about that and they're really bent about Melissa Oftermar coming in. So I know that was a lot of pressure on her. But then they heard her and saw her playing live, and all that went away because she was so good. She was so good, and she just won people over with her talent. And people just I don't want to say people that forgot about Darcy, but the people were like, okay, this chick's cool.
She can stay.
She can stay. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. All right, what you got, Jim? Number 3.
You mentioned Canadians, right?
Oh, here we go. More CanCon. I like that.
I mean, obviously, I had to put some type of CanCon on my list.
Not me.
And I didn't change my mind at all on this selection for number 3. But if I did change my mind a million times, I want to hear her say, yeah, I like it that way. It's Shania Twain.
Cool.
Windsor's one.
Love her.
This guy called that one.
Yeah, I did. I knew you'd have CanCon, and I knew you'd be Shania.
Yeah.
You had probably 3 of my 5 picked out when we were talking about this before the show. But Shania Twain is probably I guess she's the trailblazer for pop country popularity that's kind of exploded over the last 25 years. Kind of like what Garth Brooks did, which bring country into the mainstream almost. Mm-hmm. Now that it's basically replaced rock on most radio stations. Didn't have a very popular debut in 1993, but when she hooked up with a very famous producer named Mutt Lange, who was the mastermind behind a lot of AC/DC tunes, she really hit her pinnacle with her first album, or her second album, The Woman in Me, which released such hits as Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under? And, of course, the ones that I quoted, Any Man of Mine.
Yep.
And then when it came to 1997, Come On Over, that was when the popularity exploded. She got onto the top 40 stations. Man, I Feel Like a Woman, one of the greatest anthems, the homage to Robert Palmer in the music video.
I'm a man. I just want to. Sorry, I'm a man. We're all men. And when she says "Let's go, girls," I'm like, "Let's." I can run through a effing wall right now. I will hike Olympus for you.
Absolutely, and she looks dynamite in that music video as well, just like she does in that "Don't Impress Me Much." You're Still the One was that beautiful ballad from that, as well as From This Moment On. Then she kind of went experimental with her next album, Up, I believe it was.
Yep.
She did
Yeah,
three different
That was a
styles.
huge success.
Yeah.
Get You
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, the I Get You Good, Up, Forever and For Always was the really big hit off of that album. But she did a red version, which was the pop and rock version of it. She did the green version, which was the country version of it. And then I believe she did a blue version, which was like a world-themed music version of that album, which was kind of trailblazing for that time too, if I'm not mistaken. And then towards that, she ended up having the battle of Lyme disease, which kind of robbed her of a lot of her career, which was unfortunate because she was at the pinnacle of her superstardom at the time. She had just done the Super Bowl, the Greatest Hits album had just come out, but great to see her back now. Obviously, the unfortunate controversy with the whole Mutt Lange, how that relationship ended. Now she's dating the now she's married to the husband of Mutt Lange's mistress. Yeah, absolutely. It was so wild. Weird. Like, you talk about tabloid stuff with J-Lo, like Shania Twain, that's freaking weird as hell. But it's great to see her back after such a long struggle. Basically, almost, as she said, she lost her voice for 7 years. Or she lost her singing voice for 7 years. So, wow. And no one rocks a Canadian tuxedo better than she does.
There you go. So Francois is over here appeasing LB, my mom, and Jim's down here appeasing Jacques Brian, my dad. Shania Twain is from his hometown, which is Timmins, Ontario. And when you go to Timmins, there's a big billboard as you're entering the town, the home of Shania Twain, and this whole they take it as a big deal that Shania is from Timmins. So yeah, my dad definitely likes Shania. But I'll tell a funny story about Shania Twain. So I used to DJ weddings for my friends. So I would do that as a gift as a wedding gift. I would DJ friends' weddings, and so I DJ'd friends of mine's wedding, and I always ask, what songs do you want me to play? What songs don't you want me to play? Because I know there's songs that people don't like and don't want. And so they said, we don't want any Shania Twain. We want zero Shania Twain. We don't want to hear it at our wedding. And so I had this young couple come up to me and be like, can you please play From This Moment, Shania Twain? I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. The bride and groom told me they don't want any Shania during the wedding. And they're like, but it's our song. And I'm like, you know whose not song it is? The bride and groom. So I'm not going to play them on their wedding day. You can take that up with them if you want to. You can, and in fact, you can go to your house and slow dance to From This Moment for the rest of the night if you want to. But I'm not playing it. But anyway, so whenever I hear Shania, I always think of that couple. I'm like, come on, are you serious?
I'm gonna be with that couple. Like, what Scott said is, like, as soon as he hears "Let's Go, Girls," he's ready. Like, I let's go out the door. Like, I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll be back in 2 minutes 57 seconds, whenever this song is done, because I cannot stand "Man, I Feel Like a Woman," only because I just
love it.
Part of it, and it goes to what Jim was saying, that that album and those songs were played so much over every station. That's what the thing. There was so much carryover from those songs that they were literally played on the country station, they were played on the pop station, they were played on the rock station, and it's like you could not escape those songs. So you're flipping through the dial, and it's like, oh, Shania, there's a Shania song, there's a Shania song, there's a Shania song, and it's like that shows her appeal to that she can appeal to all those different genres and those kind of people groups, but also it's like, okay, we get it, Shania, got it,
And that's the other thing, appealing to genres, appealing to demographics too. She was beautiful. She was beautiful, and so it was obviously appealing to the men. But she was also she didn't flaunt it excessively, which was comfortable for women as well at that time as well.
And her lyrics were very empowering to women as well. It was
absolutely
whose boots of your whose bed has your boots been under, and man, I feel like a woman, and it's
Don't
very
impress
much
me
like
much. It's just
I'm a woman, hear me roar, and I'm not going to be a pushover anymore. Yeah,
cool.
You think people like Laura Bell Bundy, Carrie Underwood, Taylor Swift have not been influenced by Faith Hill, have not been influenced by Shania Twain and her success, carrying that success over from country to pop? She's a pioneer.
Yeah.
And to think when that album came out to 95, when she had the bare midriff, like showing her stomach, like that 6 inches of stomach, that was so almost like witchcraft for the whole country scene. And now,
oh my gosh, hilarious.
Now look at where we are.
Yeah, no kidding.
Close.
25
You're wearing clothes. Oh.
That's so yesteryear. All right.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna move on to my number 2. My number 2 is an artist that basically defined a whole genre of music in the late 70s and 80s, and her name is Susie Sue, and she is from Susie and the Banshees.
Susie and the Banshees. I knew you were gonna have that.
I knew you knew that I was gonna be hard because I always request her during thing. She is born Susan Ballion, and from London, England. She was huge into the punk scene in the late 70s. She was basically part of the extended crew of the Sex Pistols. She was at a lot of their gigs, and her and Steve Severin, who she formed Susie and the Banshees with, appeared on the infamous Bill Grundy television show where he had the Sex Pistols on there, and they were swearing, and like people lost their minds, and there was this like huge thing. You can see her. That's her first basically public appearance, was on that show, and she was in the background like answering people's phones as they're calling in, and telling people to piss off, and like her and Steve Severin were in there telling people to piss off and all that stuff.
I gotta interrupt. I'm like, how do I know this? This is on House of Balloons. This is what the Weeknd samples.
I know, buddy.
I've never heard of this woman. How do I know this song?
But I told you that. That's why I love that track. That's why I love that track, right?
Please continue. Sorry.
So she formed Susie and the Banshees with Steve Severin. They basically like started without really being a band. They just basically jumped on stage, jumped onto this opportunity to open for the Sex Pistols. With the two of them and two like musicians that they just basically dragged on stage, and they did this like 30-minute set, and they kind of were like just did it for kicks and for laughs, but there was such a demand for them afterwards that they were like, okay, well maybe we can make this a thing, and so they carried on, and she had such a unique style. Like when you think of goth, right? When you think of goth, the goth that is style, you think of this, right? This is what you picture in your mind as being goth. Sure. This came from Susie and the Banshee. This came from her. This is her style. When she appeared in public appearances, basically girls started dressing like this. People started dressing like this in public, and it was because of her and because of her public appearances. I don't want to say that she was the first one to dress like this, but she was the first one to make it popular. She was the first one to make it into the public image.
I definitely know why Edward Scissorhands looks the way he does. The
same
thing. And like she just has her own thing going, where she has her own style, her own sense. Like she has such confidence and such like charismatic stage presence that you can't not watch her when she's on screen. Even like I said, those things where she's in the background, like you're just drawn to her because she's such a presence. One of the things I like about her, and it's the same thing I like about Kate Bush, is that her lyrics are about they're not just throwaway lyrics. She writes lyrics about historical events. One of her I think the very first album The Scream is about World War One. She basically wrote a lot of the songs about World War One. Like her tracks are about stuff that was happening in the 80s in England, like basically like a revolt of what was happening in England at the time. One of my favorite tracks of them is called Cities in Dust, and it is about the city of Pompeii. So when I heard this as a kid, I didn't know anything about it, and I kind of like learned about what happened in Pompeii because of this song. And I don't know if you guys know about Pompeii, what happened in Pompeii. If you don't, check it out. It's amazingly interesting. But this song is all about that. It's all about what happened to them and about that whole situation of how basically Pompeii got wiped off the map, but then got preserved for us now to be able to see like a moment in time trapped forever in Pompeii. And so like you can deep dive that afterwards. But the reason why I found out about Susie and the Banshees, and you guys are going to laugh about this, is because of The Cure. The Susie and the Banshees opened for The Cure in their late 70s tour, and midway through the tour, their guitarist quit. And so Robert Smith from The Cure, who's the lead singer of The Cure, and also the guitarist, filled in for the rest of the tour, and then stayed on to be on the next album, which was Hyena. And so he's the guitarist on Susie and the Banshees album, Hyena. And so then after that, he kind of couldn't handle it. And in 82, he kind of left the band because he couldn't handle being in both bands at the same time, especially being like the main driving voice behind The Cure.
That's what I was gonna say. Obviously, that's tough, man.
That's tough to be in things, even when they're they weren't touring together at the time. This song Spellbound has been featured in a million different horror movies and TV shows. It's definitely like one that's played a lot on Halloween and like Halloween playlists. I love it. It's my number one. It no matter how many times I hear it. This driving beat and the driving beat and the driving tambourine that she plays, I just love it. But I for all the things that she stands for, like she is very unique and very outspoken. She's been outspoken for years in the media, and like very speaks her mind. Doesn't care what people think. Much like Kate Bush, basically decided, okay, my public image is now over, and basically went and lived her private life. She kind of reappears, time and again when she wants to, and when she doesn't want to, she just doesn't. And like people try to get her to do stuff, and she's like, nah, I'm good. And I just like that like clearly. I don't owe you anything. This was for me. I did this for me. I didn't do this for you. This is my thing, and I'm gonna live my life how I want to now. And I just love that.
That is good. That is cool.
So yeah, that's my number 2,
Susie from Susie
Sue.
I'm blown away. I can't believe I made the Weekend connection. I'm like listening, and go back and watch this when this airs. I'm like, and then I type it in, and it's like the Weekend sampled Susie. I'm like, oh my God, I've listened to this song 500 times. And to now know the originator, I'm mind blown. I'm honestly, that's, if I get nothing out of today's episode, it's that I knew where you like the sample so much. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think I told you that, but you just were like, it didn't mean
it didn't. You're like,
right?
It's Susie Sue. I'm like, I don't know. Did you have a stroke?
Yeah.
Fucking guy, it's not Susie Studio.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like she and like. Their influence on obviously not just the goth style, but like when people talk about goth music, like that they're at the top of the list of influence. Like, and just her music has been so influential just over the years that people just quote her as a person and as a band has been so influential. So yeah,
cool. So right. How many is she British?
Yes, from Lennox.
How many British people do you have on your list?
3.
Cool. Okay, I got a Brit.
Three Brits, 1 Yank was Erykah Badu from Texas, and then I got one that I won't. My number 1 is not from either of those places.
Ooh. I will say, because my number 2, I finally tap into the international market.
All right,
and with that, with my number 2. So, as my number 2, and it's funny, Natalie, we went through my list and she guessed correctly my number 2, and she knew, okay, I know your number 1. So my number 2 is somebody who I consider, I didn't have to think about it. It's appointment listening. Like, not a lot of albums released. So far standing at 3 albums released in her career. You can bet your ass I'll be circling the date when the 4th is announced, like most of the world. This is a woman who, in her 3 albums she's released, has won in total 147 awards, including 15 Grammys. And I'm talking about Adele.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So Adele's somebody, she almost made my debut albums list with 19. We'll go through her albums here. She has 19, 21, and 25, the ages that she was when she recorded them, to reflect the part of her life. Genius, because she can look back and how her life weaves through her songs. And there's never been, I don't think, anybody who's weaved their personal life and their highs and their lows and their tragedies into their music as Adele Adkins. And in 19, almost made my favorite debut albums, but 21's a masterpiece. So I couldn't give it that because I do think she gets better. So while I wanted to save 19, 21 is by far her best work. With that, though, Adele's somebody who I was introduced shortly after 19 came out. And I remember, like I said, the comparison of Amy Winehouse was coming out. And Amy Winehouse was really popular. And then there was an Adele. And in an alternate world, if Amy Winehouse does survive, you kind of have a Michael Jackson, Prince, whose side of the camp are you on? Are you on Adele? Are you on that, the cookie cutter, her ballads, her power ballads, her anthems, or are you in the, the smokier, jazzier, like edgier, like drug-induced coma of Amy Winehouse? And that you would have had those two for the Brit, a female, pop, jazz, R&B power scene. But unfortunately, so it's Adele who I think is handily power ranked, at the top of the list. I said there was one that might rival Alicia Keys. I think it's probably Adele in the fact that, when she does announce her next album, it's going to be one that people are going to circle and go, if you want to win Grammys that year, Billie Eilish or anyone else, stay out of her lane when she releases 32, 33, 34. And going back to just how I said Adele weaves her life story into her music, it's kind of funny as you look. 21, incredible. She was going through a breakup. She has some big power ballads about that. 25, she got married and she had a kid. So you get a little bit poppier stuff. Same thing happened to Michael Bublé. I didn't really like that happier stuff. I wanted the raw emotion of it. And you look at what happens here. She got divorced this year. Oh no, how terrible. But that's going to be damn good for her music. Also, may he R.I.P. Her father just died of cancer. That's tragic. R.I.P. But let's channel some of that to get some really raw ballads out of that. Like, when bad stuff happens to Adele, good stuff happens to my ears because she's going to make some really, really powerful music. And with that, I'm going to segue to my top 4 favorite Adele songs. My number 4, Set Fire to the Rain. That was an unbelievable track when that came out. Number 3, Chasing Pavements. Chasing Pavements was probably my first foray. That's off 19. That's my first foray into Adele at the time. It was covered on Glee, and I remember being like, what is this? My number 2, Rolling in the Deep. That's the song you heard when I first started. What an unbelievable song. It can be sung with 2 people. It can be sung alone. And my number 1 is her Oscar-winning Bond theme, Skyfall. Anyone who knows me knows how much I love Skyfall. Skyfall, when it was released, I remember I was working in radio at the time, and I remember it was released at 8 in the morning, and I listened to it. I listened to it probably 40 times on my drive to Leamington. So by the time when I got there and we played it at like 11, I was already singing the lyrics, and they're like, how do you know this? I remember Carrie was the girl on air, and she's like, how do you know this song? It just came out. And I'm like, Carrie, I listened to this song on nonstop repeat on the way here. So I've already listened to this song 40 times, and I have, and it's probably my most listened to song on iTunes. So for that, for everything else, and like I said, that I do hold her up. She's number 1. I'll watch her when she hosts SNL. I will follow her storylines and her life because I want to know what kind of music we're getting. So my number 2, one of the most powerful women in music, 147 awards, 3 albums. Adele.
Crazy.
That's
Yeah.
insane. That's so good. Keeping it going right now with our number twos. I have got my number two, and mine is going to be one that almost made my list of best debut albums. And that is from a band called Band of Skulls. So my next one is also a bass player. Yeah, her name is Emma Richardson. She's the bass player and vocalist for Band of Skulls. Band of Skulls is a three-piece that has released now something like 4 or 5 albums, I think. My favorite one is their debut album, Baby Darling Dollface Honey, which this is from right here. The cool thing about that band is that originally they were made up of 3 people, it's a trio, and all of them were songwriters. 2 of them were vocalists, and those 2 have been friends since grade school. That would be Emma Richardson and the other lead singer. The drummer has since left the band. But what was cool is that they would all write songs and take turns, and they would all sing, except for the drummer. So it kind of had this cohesive sort of unit, but they knew that they were in it for sort of the group aspect of things. So every time they sing, every time they harmonize, everything is sort of like they either rotate perfectly or they harmonize perfectly. And so everything really works together. You're almost talking about like taking the White Stripes and adding that perfect third that just makes like this band that's just amazing. I will admit that as the albums go on, I sort of kind of fell off because I just fell in love so much with that first album and the sound of that album. It was hard for me to get used to the next ones. The second one, Sweet Sour, is also very, very good. And overall, I will still listen to them a lot, but that first album I will throw on all the time. Why Emma Richardson as a musician? She's just, the bass is very important in this band. As I said, as a very rhythmic sort of riff-based sort of band, you got to have that solid. You have to have that solid bass player that's in tune with the drummer, and so we had that. And at the same time, to be able to deliver really good vocals, a fun, like an interesting voice that is dead on and that really works with the her male counterpart. The whole thing just really is cohesive, and I think that's what I like about that first, and even I'll give you the second album, and that's why I think I wanted Emma Richardson to be my number 2 woman in music.
Very cool. I've heard the name Band of Skulls, and I think we've brought them up before, but I've never listened to them at all. So that's something I want to check out. I'm definitely a big fan of 3-piece bands, like you said. If you're a 3-piece band or a 2-piece band, but if you're a 3-piece band, everyone has to be tight. Everyone has to be tight. Everyone has to be doing their part, because if you screw up, you're gonna notice, right? Especially when you're playing live. All 3 have to be stellar musicians. I mean, you don't have to be stellar musician, but you have, like I said, you have to be tight. You have to be in tune with each other. And so just to have that connection where they've known each other for so long, you get that connection, right? You get that connection from being around a person for that long, and you can have that. So I'm definitely a big fan of 3-piece bands. So I'll definitely check them out. Very cool.
Cool.
All right.
Jim, what do you got? You're itching. Go so Chubao.
All right, so I cheated a little bit with my number 2 because I had multiple people for this one. And because really when we're talking about this band, neither lady's more important than the other, because not only do they share the songwriting ability with another guy who unfortunately was kicked out of the band a couple years ago ungraciously by one of the singers, which I'm still a little bit pissed off about. But they combine so beautifully in their harmonies. They carry the weight equally. I saw them in concert a couple years ago. You know, I'm wearing the shirt right now.
Oh, wow.
There you
It's
go.
Fleetwood Mac.
Wow, okay. I thought we were one.
And like I said, no one's more important than the other. It's Christine McVie and Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, class of 1998. Stevie Nicks is actually a double Hall of Famer because she went in solo in 2019. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on. But look at that number, 120 million records sold worldwide, pretty much based off of Rumors, which I think is triple diamond, if I'm not mistaken, which is 30 million albums. Not a lot of people have sold that many. But there are differences between the two. Obviously, Christine McVie is more blues-based. She was with the band in 1970 and was actually a session musician with them during the early days with Peter Green, but when it was Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, and they were doing a whole bunch of blues songs, The Black Magic Woman, Oh Well, which was one of their earlier hits. She progressed with them through 1975 when they replaced Bob Welsh and they brought in Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. And it was actually on Lindsey Buckingham's recommendation because they were replacing Bob Welsh as the guitarist. And he said, as much as I'd love to join, it's a package deal with me and Stevie. So he vouched for her, and I would say it's a pretty good investment.
It paid off. I'd say.
Because in 1975, they released Fleetwood Mac, and it wasn't really charting all that great until that big hit Rhiannon came through. Then that's when the hits started coming through. Yeah. But that's not to say that Christine didn't do her heavy lifting on that album. Over My Head, Say You Love Me were just as big of a hit as Rhiannon and Landslide were. And then Rumors came, and that was the flow. All of them contributed equally. Christine did 4 songs on that. Stevie did 3. She had a 4th called Silver Springs, which was unfortunately not on the album. It was on the bonus edition later on. Beautiful track. But Don't Stop, Songbird, which is a beautiful ballad by Christine. They're so different too, because you can tell Christine's blues-based voice, kind of more quiet, kind of more measured almost. Stevie's more of the power type singer in that band, but when they do their harmonies, especially when they had Lindsey Buckingham in the band, they just rap together so magnificently. And then obviously later on, both had some success with their solo albums. Christine obviously didn't have the same success as Stevie Nicks did with Belladonna, which was obviously with the collaborations with Don Henley from the Eagles and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah.
So much more success. But it's one of those things where you can't pick between the two who's more important to the band.
Oh, for sure. Again, you're appealing to Jacques Bryan there. Fleetwood Mac is a huge band for my dad, and it was a band that I never got into growing up, but as I got older, started to appreciate more and more the more I listened to them. And I own probably 3 of their albums there. And it's funny. Obviously, they got a massive boost over the last year from a guy drinking juice.
I can't believe that they charted again.
They literally would jump back on the chart thanks to
it's
a
incredible.
dude.
I was just I think they had that too. I'm sorry, I had to dip out for a sec. Guardians 2, The Chain was massive. Yeah. It tied into the movie, and then the guy drinking juice on the skateboard was really big too. Actually, it's funny you bring that up.
Well, we'll be talking about The Chain later on during our TV themes because it holds such resonance for the Brits in one of their long-running sports programs, actually. But I'll talk about that later on in another episode.
Okay, so my honorable mentions are Elizabeth Fraser from the Cocteau Twins, who's featured on Massive Attack and other electronic artists, Hope Sandoval from Mazzy Star, and MIA, the rapper.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions, Beyonce, who was on this list up until 11 p.m. last night. Somebody who was number 5 until Donna Summer beat them out. A group that Jim Funny he put on. I was going to put on the Pointer Sisters. Big enough Pointer Sisters. Love the Pointer Sisters. And the last one, somebody who was as high as my number 2 in the very first rough copies. But I thought more about her personal life and was like, God, I can't stand Britney Spears. But her music's great, but I can't really stand me. So those would be my honorable mentions.
Cool.
Very nice. I didn't really have any, so I'm going to go ahead and say In Vogue and Heart for my buddy Michael. I don't know. I didn't have any. I don't have any honorable mentions. That's what I'm going to say. But I like In Vogue, though.
More
never
CanCon.
Gonna get it, never gonna get
More
it.
CanCon. You got more CanCon with Heart.
Yeah.
So Pink obviously got some consideration from me just because of her range of great talent. And then the girl groups of the 60s, the two most famous ones would have been Diana Ross and the Supremes. I prefer more so over Diana Ross and the Supremes, Martha than the Vandellas. They just rock a little bit harder to me. Their songs just have a little bit more energy to me, so that's why it would have been my 5. I
never thought I would live to see the day that I'd hear Martha and the Vandellas rock a little harder. So I want
to have Nowhere to Run.
Nowhere to Run. Oh yeah, it's hard hitting.
Bring us home, AB.
All right, here we go. Number 1. My number 1 was a no-brainer for me. This is someone who I have known since basically going into high school was when I first heard her and was blown away right from the get-go. First time I heard her sing anything. She is a one of one. There is no one on the planet like her. There will probably never be a person on the planet like her. Everything about her is so weird and so out there that people have said that she is from another planet, but she is not from another planet.
I know who.
She is from Iceland.
Yes.
Her name is Bjork.
I knew it.
Oh, really?
When you said she was an alien, I knew who you were talking about.
I did not know you liked Bjork that much.
I am a humongous Bjork fan. Basically, I heard her. I saw her music video for one of her Sugar Cube songs on The Box. When I was very small, and you guys know The Box. The Box was a TV station that you could watch music videos and you could call in and pay 75 cents or whatever, and they would play your music video. So there was this band called the Sugar Cubes, and there was a singer on there, and she was very unique looking, and her voice was out there. It was something I'd never heard anything like it before. It was so weird. And so fast forward maybe a year or two later, and she releases her solo album debut, and it is that voice again, but set to dance beats. And so her music videos again start come on for Human Behavior and Big Time Sensuality, and they're directed by Michel Gondry, and so they're insane and super fun. And I was like, this is that girl that was in that video. And I'm like, I need to find everything that's about this person. And so, start getting into it, get into that album. And she's just, like I said, wholly completely original person. She, from her look to her vocal stylings, she can go from this frail, fragile, almost to the point of breaking voice, to these wild shrieks and screams, and she comes from the punk scene, so there's punk elements to her music. She dated she was almost married to Goldie from who was a drum and bass artist, and she got huge into the electronic scene, so obviously that influenced her music, and she got into a lot of electronic music. And so that became a part of her thing. And she just incorporates so much different stuff into her music. When you start dissecting her music and her albums, there's so much involved and so much intricacies going on in the music itself. And all of it just creates this sound sphere that again, you can put her albums on and just it just creates an entire universe for you, at least for me anyways, where I just lose myself in her music when I put on her albums. And she's one of the artists that I have to listen to an album. I don't want to listen to singles. I don't want to listen to one track and then move on to another thing. I need to listen to an entire album. I need to start at the press play at the beginning, go through an entire album, because she crafts her albums to to be cohesive. Like all of her albums have a cohesion to them, minus Post, where it's funny, she hates It's So Quiet, which is one of her big hits. She hates that song. It was kind of like almost forced on her to make this like hit, and so like she does not like that album, and it's very jarring in that album. My favorite album from her is the When the Sun Is There, Homogenic, and it's a very electronic based album. It's heavily influenced by the electronic scene at the time. This song here is off this vinyl here. It's called Pagan Poetry, which is also one of my favorite tracks on here. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful track. Again, I just love how passionate she is about her music and how passionate she is about her art. She incorporates everything into her performances. Her art is her performance in her music videos, in her live shows. She's an actress. She's appeared in movies, in Dancer in the Dark, which is a soul-crushing movie that she stars in, a lead actress in. I just love that kind of artist where they incorporate everything into everything that they do. It's not just a song. It's not just a performance. It's everything. It's the entire package that she brings to everything that she does. And obviously, she works with amazing producers. She works with amazing video artists. Like I said, Michel Gondry. She almost worked with it exclusively, and she created some incredible videos for her over the years. And she just knew how to surround herself with the best musicians, the best people involved. And for me, there is no one like Bjork, and there will never be anyone like Bjork. She is wholly and completely original, and I love her for it.
Number one. Okay,
guys, let's go. I'm so excited for this. Anyone who knows me knows AB guessed this. I will die on this hill. The woman I'm about to talk about, number one. Guys, all your choices are cute. This is the number one. This is the number one most beautiful.
I didn't know this was a competition.
No, it's the most beautiful, most talented. She's the greatest woman in music of all time. There's no question to me. Her songs span the deepest. She has longevity. She has the fame outside, good and bad. But my number one, AB, who is it?
Whitney.
Anyone who knows anything about me knows I worship at the altar of Whitney Houston. May she forever R.I.P. With that said, Whitney Houston is my number one. Her apex mountain higher than probably anyone who ever had an apex mountain in music before. Her 1992 when she's doing The Bodyguard and the Bodyguard soundtrack, and she's singing the Star-Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl, which is a Rushmore NFL moment. Super Bowl moment is her national anthem. And with that, Whitney Houston, one of the most incredible stories in music. Dionne Warwick's cousin. Aretha Franklin is her godmother. She's in this family. She's kind of just ushered into stardom. And like I said, the heights she achieves, starting from her 7 released albums and her debut album. Did you know that Whitney Houston's debut album, simply called Whitney Houston, had 4 number 1 singles on it? Did you know that, Francois?
I did not know that, but I bet you if you name them, I know them all.
Well, it's hard to choose a favorite among so many great tracks, but The Greatest Love of All is one of the most powerful songs about self-preservation and dignity. A universal message that crosses all boundaries and instills one with the hope that it's not too late to better ourselves. Since, Jim, it's impossible in this world we live in to empathize with others, we can always empathize with ourselves. It's an important message, really. Crucial, as beautifully stated on the album. Said by Patrick Bateman, paraphrased by myself. But you'll see through here, the debut album, Whitney Houston, on to Whitney, on to I'm Your Baby Tonight. Growing up.
I much prefer it when Randy Watson sings it. sexual chocolate.
That way good. Good and bad. So that being said, Whitney, this is incredible. Whitney she's the all-time greatest. I have nothing else to really add about this. Growing up, I just knew that Whitney Houston was the greatest voice, blessed from God himself, into her, and she was able to channel it and harness it and move mountains with her voice. Her singing and her setup was incredible. Like I said, I couldn't choose. I'm going to go to 4 songs. I couldn't choose. I stressed over it, literally stressed over it. I finished at a 4-song selection, but it had changed so many times. This is a woman who has about 100 songs, and she can go, and she goes through the sounds. She goes from her power ballads with Clive Davis into some New Jack Swing style stuff, takes a few years off. She comes back. She teams up with R. Kelly and Jermaine Dupri, I believe, too, and comes out with a little bit of R&B too, and leading through. So, like I said, Whitney will always be my number one. Not even music, just one of the most important women in my life growing up. I'm a Whitney Houston mega fan. That being said, we'll go to my top 4 songs. My number 4, this is, like I said, guys, this is incredibly tough to do. But my number 4, I'm Your Baby Tonight. I just think this is going to be Want to Dance with Somebody, but off her 3rd album, I'm Your Baby Tonight just has, and like when she gets into that, at the end, the dun, 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 is incredible stuff.
Yeah.
My number 3, How Will I Know? I put it on. Oh, what a fun song, guys.
Yeah.
And then my number 2, the song you just heard, The Greatest Love of All, leading to her number 1, which I say is the number 1 most important, best performed, greatest song of all time. You stack any song any woman has ever done, and they all pale in comparison to her rendition of I Will Always Love You off the Bodyguard soundtrack, remade and from Dolly Parton's song, taken and put out into the universe as her own. And it contains 43 seconds to open the track of just a cappella singing with no musical accompaniment. And it is scintillatingly beautiful. It is, like I said, the greatest version of a song that's ever been done. And for that, she will always be my favorite female artist. This was so easy to pick. And like I said, I worship at the altar, still do, of Whitney Houston. And this has been an enlightening experience because I've been able to go back and listen to all of her tracks, even into the newer 2000s stuff. Just how she changes with the times. Didn't have the same speed on her fastball. Going back to, I'd be remiss to say, even without the music, she has this volatile relationship with R&B superstar Bobby Brown, which is covered all through the tabloids. And again, Whitney ultimately becomes, I'm in love with the story of Icarus. We've always talked about it. She is, in her own way, a music Icarus who flew too close to the sun and paid the price for it. And like I said, because of how fascinating it is, because I'm attracted to that kind of story, because she's the greatest diva of all time, and she had the greatest voice, my number 1 is and will always be Whitney Houston.
Good choice on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah. My number 1, I want to first extend my thanks to AB for letting me have her. Because I feel like he would have picked her as well. I will tell you, I'm a little ashamed because, I only knew her as the singer in that group. I never even knew what her name was until AB told me. But I do stand by the fact that my number 1 is going to be Beth Gibbons from Portishead. Yeah. So it's not cheating because I did use Portishead's debut album last time on the show for debut album. So now I'm playing a clip from their second album. So first of all, it's completely different. And I am singling out a single person, which is this singer right here. Beth Gibbons is a singer for... my favorite picture of her, by the way. This is my favorite picture of her. She's a singer of Portishead. She's got a great, amazing voice, first of all. People often use the term haunting, she has such a haunting voice. And I'm always like, what does that mean? Like she's a ghost? Like she's going around? But I mean, Beth Gibbons does that. She does literally.
Great.
Right? Like she's got like a great voice and But like this chick, like she drinks, she smokes on stage as she's singing. Like people usually take care of their voice, you know, like, oh, it's my instrument, I gotta be careful. And she's like, I don't give a shit. She just basically, she drinks, she smokes, she sings. She's great. Here's why I think her voice and me get along really well. I don't listen to lyrics. So a lot of people are like, oh, you know the lyrics and what they're saying, and it's like I don't know. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what's going on here, because I hear the voice as just another instrument. And so Beth Gibbons has that capacity with her voice that she can sing all sorts of words, and whatever she's saying, she could be saying pickles covered in mayonnaise on the floor of my carpet door. I don't care what she's saying. It sounds beautiful, and it carries you, and it works with, again, as I said, with Band of Skulls, it's about cohesiveness. It's about the sound of the voice working with the sound of the instruments, working with the general mood of it. And I think that's what it is about Beth Gibbons from, I'm going to keep saying her name now because I know it. The singer for Portishead is one of those things, is that her voice is literally the closest thing to like a beautiful wordless siren song. So there you go. That's my song number one. Is if you could aspire to be that, that's your number one right here.
So just to connect this to our earlier Bond talk, Portishead was my soundtrack when I was playing GoldenEye. Portishead has very like Bond type music.
Yeah.
Especially the first two albums for sure. And so when I would play Bond, I would basically you could have the option of turning the music off of Bond and just have the sound effects. And so I would turn the music off, put on Portishead, and play Bond because it was like that was my Bond music. I love those first two albums. I mean I love all of it, but those first two albums are untouchable. Amazing, as far as like start to finish.
First two, and then the Live in NYC, which is a combination of the two,
of course,
done with the live orchestra,
which adds that whole other element to it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
It's they're great.
Let's finish it off, Jim.
What you got, Jim?
Number one.
Yeah, well, you know, Scott talked about greatest voices, and I mean, he talked about someone with an apex mountain. I went with the person that's more of the timeless classic, the one that reigned over the land like Queen Victoria for 60 some odd years, because she really did reign over the land for 60 some odd years as a musical talent, and that person was, of course, Aretha Franklin.
There you go.
I mean,
that one. Yeah.
The statistics say it themselves. First female inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just look at that number right there. 77 charting songs on the Billboard Hot 100. And you think about the two number ones that are so different. You got Respect, obviously, which is the definitive hit of hers. And then later in the late 60s and then in the early 80s, she's changes up her style. It's going from Atlantic to Columbia Record, or not Columbia, Arista Records with Clyde Davis. And she's duetting with George Michael for I Knew You Were Waiting for Me as her second number one hit.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that hit number one. That's cool.
That hit number one. That was her other number one hit.
Interesting.
But the fact that she was such a pioneer for a whole bunch of women, her activism in the civil rights movement for Native American rights as well. Her style, she can hop from the ballad, she can do R&B, she can do soul, she can do rock and roll. And then, if you want to watch something on YouTube that's really special, watch her fill in the Queen of Soul, filling in for the King of Cancellations, Pavarotti, at the 1998 Grammys, singing the Nessun Dorma. She did it all. She did
was
it
in the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, she was in the, and that's
iconic scene. Iconic scene.
Absolutely. A badass version of Think, and that's what almost started her second renaissance in the 80s when she started pumping out hits again. The collaboration with Annie Lennox sisters are doing it for themselves.
Yes, sir.
She did it the longest, she did it the best, and dare I say it, you couldn't really tell. She didn't lose a whole lot between when she first became hugely popular in '66 and when she was doing that awesome version of the national anthem at the Detroit Lions Thanksgiving game in 2016. She was
It was
still on
8
point.
minutes long.
8 minutes, well, 4
I
minutes.
was at that game, and that was excruciating. It was Bleeding Gums Murphy. It was Little Richard in Mystery Alaska, is what it felt like.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, 50 years spanning between those two times, and I think every woman that's been in music has been somewhat inspired by Aretha Franklin that followed her afterwards.
100%.
You're right.
R.E.S.P.E.C.T.
Without a doubt. She is the
Yes.
queen. Well,
Absolutely.
That was a great comparison.
Absolutely.
She's Queen Elizabeth of the music industry.
Just the like you said that song is an icon. It's taken on
Yes.
our respect is not just her anthem, is the anthem of
the women's movement.
women's movement. For like
Yeah.
it is so iconic and it is so well known even now, 50 years later, that like you can put it on and little kids know it. Like it'll forever be iconic.
And it has the power of becoming the iconic song of any movement
Movement,
like that
sure.
needs that
Because
sort of push, right? It's asking
because
for
because
that
it's
next
such
step.
a great it is such a great song and powerful song.
And it brings you back. Like if today the LGBTQ movement uses that song, anyone who's back, from the days where Respect came out and they remember what that struggle was about, whatever the reason was, they are brought back to the struggle, not necessarily the cause itself. And so it's easier for them to relate, and sort of bring it to the contemporary world, which is like that's the power of music right there.
100%.
And to know the power of that music too, the guy that wrote it was Otis Redding. So it was written by one of the greatest male singers of all time of the 60s, Otis Redding. Woman took it over and made it her own. And
Yeah.
how about that?
How about that? Women taking it over, making it their own. And I think this is what this show is all about, really. Women in music.
Yeah, celebrating women in music.
And not in a forced way. I think everyone we chose was in that sort of like, for themselves, not for anybody else. Everyone who I think we chose was just, I'm not doing this for anybody else. I'm doing this to be a musician for myself and to get my voice out. Mm-hmm. And whether it's as the front woman of a band, as a musician in a band, as an iconic person who started, 60 years ago, or someone who started in the 90s or the 2000s. I mean, it's all been the same sort of struggle and battle, especially as I said before, it's a male dominated business.
This is a man's world.
It's a man's world.
But it wouldn't be nothing without a woman on it.
There you go. And so that's exactly it. So I think we kind of we covered all a good range of those people in different, we had the punk voices, the pop voices, the rock voices, the R&B, the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good. This is a really good.
And we went from 50s to the 2020s with our list too.
There you go. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love that span. Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna have to make sure we gather all of these songs in a playlist on Spotify and share that with our viewers. Of course,
that would be cool. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Definitely do that.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna wrap it up here. Thank you for watching the show, and we appreciate you taking time to listen to us talk about the women that we love in music. Stay tuned for our next episode. We don't know what that topic's going to be, but we know that's going to be awesome. And so thanks again for watching.
And leave us lists, please.
We'll get you next time, Madonna.
I love